So the Bond franchise limped its way into the 70s with the mundane Diamonds Are Forever. When it came time to replace Connery again, producers Broccoli and Saltzman zigged where they once zagged and hired well-known TV actor Roger Moore to fill Connery's shoes. With returning director Guy Hamilton, the series amped up the absurd, tightened its pacing, and proved that it could not only survive without Connery, it could fucking thrive. Bond's most funky and ambiguous adventure, Live and Let Die, is all kinds of 70s tacky ridiculous, but in the best possible way. The film's opening is a bit on the mundane side. 3 British agents are murdered in a short period of time, and all of them tied to the obscure island nation of San Monique. The pre-title doesn't have Bond at all, which is odd, but it does have the best fucking theme song, as well as one of Paul McCartney's more palatable solo efforts. We're introduced to Roger Moore as Bond with him in bed with this missing Italian agent, and it's the right sort of introduction. M shows up at Bond's house for an impromptu briefing, and there's some fun with the Italian chick hiding while Bond frets over M seeing her. Bond is told he's being sent to New York to start an investigation on the 3 dead agents, and that they all have something to do with the mysterious Dr. Kananga. Cut to some tarot card fortune telling, and Bond is on his way to New York. After a brief bit with Bond's driver being shot, Bond ends up on the trail of the Harlem-based drug kingpin Mr. Big, who ties into Dr. Kananga somehow. Moore looks positively silly in what pretty much is a blaxploitation film, and he seems to know how out of place he is, which makes it really fun. He takes every situation with this nonchalant attitude that's so damn cool. Cool to me in the manner that Connery is supposed to be cool in the earlier films. Now, admittedly, Roger Moore never really replicates this badassness he displays through Live and Let Die in any of his other Bond films. So Bond's following Kananga into Harlem with a system of lookouts reporting on Bond's every move as he goes along. This is all part of the film's attempt to deal with any idea of racism. The movie understands that it's adapting Bond into the hero of a blaxploitation film, when the whole idea of the films that inspired this were about black heroes triumphing, and they're made by black filmmakers. And this is also probably Fleming's most controversial novel, as it's kind of racist, and all the villains in it are also black. So there's a lot that is potentially going against this movie as it starts off, but it's a Bond film, so it's basically just a fun adventure film, and it deals with most of this pretty well. Bond is very, very white, and he's going up against a group of exclusively black villains, and the movie counteracts the possibility of this seeming racist by making sure that Bond's foes are very intelligent. The CIA has no idea of Kananga's ties with drug kingpin Mr. Big, or the intricate system set up to take care of those who interfere. I think the film handles all of this very reasonably. So into Mr. Big's Bond goes, and while smiling casually at some thugs, he meets Solitaire, tarot card reading psychic whom Kananga uses. Solitaire is played by Dr. Goddamn Quinn medicine woman herself, Jane Seymour. We also meet Teehee, one of the 2 memorable henchmen the film offers up. Mr. Big is introduced, and he quickly says to take Bond out back and waste him, to which Roger Moore smiles and asks Solitaire for another card, revealing the Lover's card. Make no mistake about it, tarot cards are fucking real in this movie. Bond is dragged out into the street to be shot, and he's so fucking calm and cool about it. I love that. So Bond's out back to be killed, and the film plays on the audience's assumptions by reintroducing this fellow who tailed Bond, who is in fact a CIA agent named Strutter. So Bond and him talk about why Mr. Big and Dr. Kananga would be working together, and it's clear that this guy knows his shit. I also like his line about, "Hey, white guy in Harlem, huh, Bond? Nice disguise." Then he talks to the genuine Felix Leiter, which is cool, but the guy obviously had like a CB earlier, so I don't get why he needed the Felix Leiter lighter. So off to the made-up island of San Monique we go, and we see Baron Samedi, voodoo god of cemeteries and chief of the Legion of the Dead and man who cannot die. Or as the film informs us, an actor playing him in a little musical number at the hotel here. Bond checks into his hotel where Mrs. Bond is waiting for him, he is told, and Bond is surprised and mentions how Mrs. Bond is an incurable romantic. And Moore just delivers his one-liners with such a different attitude than Connery, and it's always fucking awesome. So Bond is preparing a bath, and I guess to give him time to fill the tub, we get this very odd bit where he checks his room for bugs and communicates with a Morse code brush or something. And it's sort of a long scene for the film, which is generally clipping along at a brisk pace. So we see again our other henchman, Whisper, and Bond finishes up his bath with a cigar and lights his aftershave on fire to kill this snake. Bond also learns Whisper took his gun when he wasn't looking, continuing the film's insistence that Bond is being outwitted. So Mrs. Bond is introduced, and she's actually Rosie Carver. She apparently works with Felix in some capacity. She's a bit of a klutz, which is an odd character trait, and Bond figures she's CIA because of her gun and she talks about Felix. Rosie adjusts her wig in the bathroom and she screams at the snake Bond left on the carpet, resulting in this hilariously absurd line where Moore says, "Oh, the snake, I forgot. I should have told you never go in there without a mongoose." And Bond tries to bed Rosie, but she rejects him. She finds a tiny hat with blood on a chicken feather, and Bond responds to this in an equally casual, absurd way by saying, "Oh, it's just a hat, darling, belonging to a small-headed man in limited means who lost a fight with a chicken." It's so weird, but funny. These things have something to do with voodoo, and the movie seems to imply that Rosie believes in voodoo. And in the morning, Bond gets a tarot card with his breakfast, which is the Queen of Cups. Bond needs a boat, and he goes to the laziest-looking guy with a boat. Bond goes fishing, and Rosie changes, and the film makes it look like this fellow is going to try to kill Bond, and we learn that this man is actually the person Bond talked to with his hairbrush earlier, and it's Quirrell Jr., presumably the son of Quirrell from Dr. No. And this is all sort of a jokey thing, I guess, since Live and Let Die, the novel, was released before Dr. No, the novel, and Quirrell was still alive in the book. So Rosie and Bond go looking for where the Agent Bain's body was found on the island, and Kananga confers with Solitaire, who tells him Bond has arrived. Kananga responds with, "Rosie has been more efficient than I anticipated." So actually, she's Kananga's klutzy double agent. It's unclear exactly how she knew about Felix and why she had a CIA gun, if she's an agent or not, if he turned her to his side. I don't know. Fuck it. It doesn't really matter. Kananga asks Solitaire about the future, and she again turns over the Lover's card. She lies to Kananga and tells him it's death for Bond, which he takes in stride since all the others he's killed presumably got the death card. Bond figures something is up with Rosie, so he fucks her and then pulls his ha-ha moment when he reveals the tarot card he was given earlier told him she was working for Kananga, as it was the Queen of Cups in upside down position, which means deceitful. Rosie says they'll kill her if she helps him, and then she freaks out of this voodoo thing, and Bond rolls his eyes, and they try to give Roger Moore some of Connery's woman-beating menace, but it doesn't really take, and he doesn't hit Rosie, but he casually threatens her life, and it's still a tad off, and Rosie chooses to flee and is killed by the voodoo thingies, showing that that's why she feared them, because they had guns. And the movie chooses an absurd sort of middle ground when it comes to voodoo stuff. It's clear that Kananga uses the voodoo, and that it's not real, but fuck it, sometimes it sure the hell seems it's real. Kananga confronts Solitaire about why Bond did not die, and Kananga threatens Solitaire that he will take her gift away when he sees fit, which I guess is through rape or death. So Bond is hang gliding like a badass to sneak into Solitaire's cliffside home. He confronts her about their foretold coupling, and Bond totally tricks his way into her pants, which is kind of fucked up. But, you know, she already saw this in the cards, so they had to be lovers, and besides, it sort of makes up for all the people she's probably helped Kananga kill with her powers. Now, there's something to that, if you really want to think about it, that Solitaire helped Kananga kill countless people, but she's also a prisoner, and she's never known any sort of freedom, and Solitaire, like any Bond girl, with the exception of Tracy, Bond's murdered wife, is a male fantasy, and this particular male fantasy isn't simply that of some random hot chick Bond runs into, but of some sort of virginal high priestess-like thing, and Bond liberates Solitaire through sex, and Solitaire's fucking hot. Go Dr. Quinn. Moore always gets the hottest Bond chicks, I swear. So by fucking Solitaire, she loses her psychic powers. Bond is obviously using Solitaire to get to Kananga, but I don't blame him, not because she's hot, but because technically she's a bad guy at this point. At the time, he doesn't really get that she's lost her gift. She babbles about the High Priestess not being the wife to the Prince of this world, and Bond gives her this hilarious what-the-fuck look. And also, her losing her virginity makes her a nympho in the movie, which really adds to the whole male fantasy thing. So Bond sees what's up and decides simply to rescue Solitaire instead of just going off directly after Kananga. But he also needs to figure out what Kananga is hiding on the island. Bond stomps off with Solitaire through all the voodoo BS, and he stumbles into this hidden poppy field. From here on out, the film is one big fucking chase. From the helicopters to Bond stealing a double-decker bus, which is great fun. He U-turns the damn thing and busts the top off it, and it all rocks. He gets to Quirrell, and it's off to New Orleans they go, and Bond gets instantly captured by the same cab driver from Harlem, but he just as quickly escapes in a tiny airport and careens around in a grounded plane. That's fucking awesome. him to. And Bond is captured by Mr. Big shortly after this, and then the big reveal happens. Mr. Big is Kananga. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Bond pieces together that Kananga grows the poppies in San Monique, and as Mr. Big, he sells the shit in his filet of soul restaurants throughout the U.S. And Kananga reveals he plans to give 2 tons of heroin away, run the competition out of business, and once the addicts rate doubles, he'll start charging. And you know, it's a seemingly good plan, I thought, and it seems a tad un-Bond since there's no world domination involved, but as the film overall is inspired by blaxploitation films, a drug plot makes perfect sense. Kananga wants to know if Bond had sexual relations with Solitaire, and Kananga determines this by asking Solitaire a 50-50 yes or no question about the registration number on Bond's watch, which she gets wrong. Kananga says, "You had a 50-50 chance. You weren't even close." But I never really got why he says this, since it's a yes or no question. She can't be close. So Bond is taken to the farm, an alligator and crocodile farm where drugs are processed. He's left with raw chicken on a little island surrounded by crocodiles and alligators, which he hopscotches across in this fun little escape scene. After trashing the drug lab, Bond rockets around the swamps of Louisiana in an absolutely inspired boat chase. The chase is great, but the scene introduces Sheriff J.W. Pepper, a redneck hick played by Clifton James, who severely mars the film. He seems to be introduced solely to ensure that the film doesn't come off racist, with him playing some sort of weird bayou stereotype, but he's such an annoying character that he just pisses you off every minute he's on screen. Luckily, the boat chase rocks, so even he couldn't ruin it. Bond learns Kananga is heading back to San Monique, so back he goes. The natives are gonna kill Solitaire this time, and Baron Zamidi shows up, and Bond stops this one guy with the snake from killing Solitaire with his hilariously large 44 that he has, and then he shoots Baron Zamidi, who the movie I guess implies is not a real person here, and then Baron Zamidi shows back up, and he kills him again, and he might have been real this time, but I don't fucking know. So Quarrel blows up the poppy fields, and Bond and Kananga have their confrontation. And of course, Kananga was expecting him. He's a Bond villain. So Bond apparently had this gas pellet air gun thing, but I don't know where he kept it. And Kananga talks with Bond and Solitaire about the future. Kananga doesn't really have anything to reveal at this point, but he does plan to feed Bond and Solitaire to sharks, which is fucking awesome. So Bond uses his wristwatch to get the gas pellet, and seriously, the wristwatch is literally his best gadget he ever gets in the whole fucking franchise. It deflects bullets, it has that magnet thing, and it turns into a fucking saw. So Bond escapes and kills Kananga hilariously with the gas pellet, forcing him to swallow it, and he floats up to the ceiling and explodes. And amazingly, the pellet somehow makes it so none of Kananga's blood or organs are strewn across his little facility here. Admittedly, the confrontation with Kananga is the weakest part of the whole film. It's by no means terrible, though. So Bond and Solitaire escape and board a train, and another joke is made about how much sex they're going to be having because she's a nympho now. Teehee sneaks aboard in the mail, all 7 fucking feet of him, and there's one final showdown. Bond wins, of course, and the movie ends with us seeing Baron Samedi on the front of the train, and fuck all if you can make that not mean voodoo is real. Look, I'm not saying that the movie is perfect, but Live and Let Die is at the very least different. It gives us a new James Bond with a very different personality and a unique new adventure with all kinds of weird shit that you've never seen in a Bond film before. The movie also nails down the strengths of director Guy Hamilton with its perfect mix of the fast pace and the absurd. You're not going to see a Bond film for deep social commentary, you're going to watch it for some action, wit, and hot chicks, and Live and Let Die is finally that perfect Bond film that the producers have been stumbling to make since Goldfinger. It's breezy fun and probably the zippiest and most infectiously entertaining of any Bond film. All the action is breakneck and top-notch, and it all fits the film's silly sensibilities. It doesn't have the iconic images of Dr. No, the classic feel of From Russia with Love, or the phenomenon-starting power of Goldfinger, but it still so thoroughly works on its own, and it ranks among Bond's best adventures. The film has a memorable villain, it has great henchmen, sexy Bond girls with Rosie and Solitaire, with Jane Seymour playing up this unattainable psychic turned nymphomaniac thing that she totally rocks. She's not as great a character as Tracy, but as far as Bond girls created solely as sex objects go, she's the best so far. Throw in Bond's best gadget ever with his wristwatch, and you have one of Bond's most strangely inspired adventures. To me, Live and Let Die works so well because it's original in the right ways to fit the franchise. It's all very strange and dates the living hell out of it, but that only adds to its off-the-wall charm. Live and Let Die takes James Bond on such an odd adventure with such unexotic locales like Harlem and the Bayou that watching Roger Moore deal with them is simply a joy. He's perfect for the unsure and erratic direction the Bond franchise would take through the 70s and 80s. And just to be as open as possible, I totally have a man crush on Roger Moore as James Bond, and he's admittedly my favorite Bond. I might be a tad biased in these reviews, after all it's my fucking opinion, but that by no means that I'm just going to give Moore's films a pass because I like him. Anyway, like the blaxploitation elements in Live and Let Die, many of Roger Moore's Bond films would be marked by some trend or gimmick, but never again would the franchise nail that idea so perfectly to make something terribly dated timeless.